All right. So tonight we're having a hybrid meeting. So when you go up to speak, this is going to be on Facebook Live and Zoom. So make sure you speak directly into the microphone because of how this is set up. It's, oh wow, I can hear myself. I'm sorry. Yes, so just make sure you speak clearly and so everybody on the internet can hear you as well. So, and I'm going to be monitoring Zoom, so I may hear a comment saying they can't hear you, and then I'll politely pause everything and then just tell you to speak louder. So we're all in this together, so just be patient with us.
Okay, so I'd like to call to order the June 16th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. And I'll read a short introduction. Welcome to tonight's BZA meeting. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, there are a few guidelines I would like to mention. Everyone is muted and your videos are turned off by default to minimize any disruptions. If you'd like to make a comment during the public hearing portions of this meeting, please raise your hand by clicking on the icon labeled Participants at the bottom of your screen, and then click the button labeled Raise Hand. If you are calling into the meeting on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. Once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. I'll repeat these instructions when we get to the public hearing, as this is our first time doing a meeting in this fashion. We'll start with a roll call, starting to my far end right.
Heller.
Don Kurtz.
Jason Cole.
Todd Chernick.
Hodge Patel.
Brenda Hampstead.
And thank you. We're going to try to do our best to speak
Todd.
into the microphones as it's a relay. Oh, sorry, Jake.
And Jake Ward.
As it's a relay to Zoom in speaking through these microphones. Apologies. We'll start with item number 3. Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand and join us? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is approval or amendment of tonight's agenda. Are there any amendments? If not, I would make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as published.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda as published say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion passed unanimous. The last meeting we've had as a Board of Zoning Appeals was in April of 2020, and that brings us to item number 5, which is approval of those February meeting minutes. I'd make a motion to approve those meeting minutes as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the February meeting minutes say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. That's passed unanimous as well. Item number 6 is consideration of primary variances. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. Our first primary variance is case V20-08-870 Owens Lake Road. Would staff please present?
Also, before, I want to say if you have a presentation, if you could just please give it to the back room, and they will put that onto the computer for you, and he'll give you further instructions. All right, so case number V20-08-870 Owens Lake Road. The requested variance is to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet, section 64-416D. The site is a 10.116 acre lot located along the west side of Owens Lake Road in the Six Hills subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the Crabapple Form-Based Code area. This property is one of the last remaining vacant lots in the Six Hills subdivision. The applicant is proposing to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet to construct a single-family house and an accessory structure in Exhibit B. Section 64-416 states that the rear yard minimum setback adjacent shall be 50 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet, a variance is required. On June 2nd, 2020, the DRB did not meet because of lack of quorum, therefore they had no comment. The staff response is the property has a Natural Resource Conservation Service easement, or NRCS easement, floodplain and stream buffers that prohibit the structures to be located anywhere else on the property, Exhibits A and B. The easement, floodplain, and stream buffers accumulate roughly 76% of the property. When you eliminate that unusable area, the septic, drainage fields, and the pathway for the driveway, the applicant is left with an estimated 0.6 acres of buildable area. The applicant is conserving as much of the forested area on site. The variance would not offend the intent of the ordinance. Allowing the reduction of the rear yard setback will not cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will be secured, and substantial justice will be done for the surrounding properties. Staff recommends approval of this request.
Cody, can you please clarify the drawings we have that's listed as Exhibit A and Exhibit B? Can we clarify Exhibit B is the one that actually notes the accessory structure in the home?
Correct. So Exhibit B is going to be showing you the location of the accessory structure and the primary house or the single-family house. Exhibit A is showing you the buildable area that the applicant is left with all of the easements, stream buffers, and floodplain on the property. Yeah, Exhibit B is just showing you the location of all the structures that are going to be on the property.
And the date of that drawing that we're going with is 3/13/2020?
Correct. Or I believe that's 2/11/2020 in the bottom right-hand corner.
Very good. Is that the date we're going with? Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Okay. If not, then I would ask the applicant or the representative to step forward. Please announce your name and address for the record. And as Cody indicated, if you have any presentation materials, the tech room in the back. Okay.
He's bringing them up right now.
Great.
Good evening. My name is David Adams. This is Gary Young, the landowner. Thank you for having us on this special night. Especially like to thank the staff right off the bat. It's been a real effort for them to get through this period, this season in our lives, and just want to thank them for pushing us forward and getting us up here tonight and working forward to get an approval recommendation tonight. I'm a land planner. I've had a 40-year career in land planning. Gary's brought me aboard to come in to do a site plan for this home. Right off the bat, a variance, it was our first obstacle. We have done a fairly extensive research of the property to decide what's the best place to locate this property. Using, in particular, though, the ordinance that Milton has put together for variances. It's not as though a variance just comes arbitrarily out of the woodwork. There's specific criteria that have to be followed. There are 4 considerations. That relief would not offend the spirit and the intent of the ordinance. Milton describes himself as having the best quality of life in all of Georgia. Milton has a slogan to keep it rural. Those 2 points in particular we've pursued to keep the improvements set away from setbacks, set away from buffers. Keep the applicant has actually imported an old 100-year barn from Ohio, for a family relic, if you will, to take down and put back up on the property, again, to keep Milton rural. There are extraordinary conditions and situations on the site. There's outcrops that are 10 to 20 feet tall, not just surface float, but substantial rocks. The site is almost entirely forested, floodplain, a stream that runs the full length of the property, north and south. So extraordinary conditions and situations. A wedge-shaped lot, very narrow in the middle. This site is a site plan that's just looking at the layout of the property and the available land for development. The shape of the property is irregular. After looking at the constraints around the property, it led us to a placement of the site that was to avoid the natural features, to be able to enhance them and protect them for the benefit of not only the landowner, but the people in the surrounding community. Does the property, the application, provide relief for the public good? It is providing relief, and it's protecting the densest forests on the site. They also happen to be the steepest slopes. It increases buffers to move the home further away from the lake. So instead of being on those tall outcrops, imposing itself on the lake, the variation would move us away from, the variance would move us away from further exposure to the lake itself. It reduces grading on the site, and the relief provides a protection of the natural features that would be there available for the public to enjoy as they visit the Young's home. But does substantial justice be met as a 4th consideration? Substantial justice is met in that the buffers on the property are significant already. To the east, buffers are as much as 300 feet wide across a floodplain, totally forested. To the north, the buffer is the lake itself. There's the property that extends right out into the lake as a whole. The forest requirements are also greatly exceeded by granting the variance. There's not a minimum forest requirement, the property being fully forested, and us proposing to minimize even further the amount of forest to be affected. Justice is met. And then finally, buffering views from the public. This has been a particularly important aspect. We want it to be sensitive to the neighbors that are looking across the lake into the site, or the neighbors that are already in the surrounding neighborhood. One aspect of this in particular came to our attention today. One of our neighbors is in the audience. We have made efforts to reach out to him, Mr. Brubaker. It turns out that in spite of the public notice, in spite of attempts of the applicant to contact him, he did not know of the hearing until last night at 5 o'clock. So we were on the phone. I was on the phone with him for an hour and apologized. I know everybody in their best efforts want to inform, but in this case, Mr. Brubaker was surprised by the variance request last night. We believe we've come to the essence of his concerns. One, visibility onto the property from his site, and 2, what would be the impact of tree removal should any kind of disturbance of trees in the future reduce that buffer. In short, I'd like to be able to say we've come to an understanding on what we need to do. Mr. Young has offered to put an easement on his property that would essentially be a non-disturbance easement, and a forest protection easement, and that easement would run the full length of his property. We have asked Mr. Brubaker in return to consider doing the same on his property, even though he has a 50-foot buffer. There's concern that vegetation could be removed in the future on his property. That has not been agreed to at this point. We don't want to bring that to the board. We would simply like to say tonight to the board that, we'd like to say to the board that we've located this property, a building that is in its best prime location for the site. We have complied with the points of consideration for granting a variance. This particular location will meet the spirit and intent of the ordinance, and we do believe that we can work out means to protect forestation. Protect forestation, views, and disturbances on the property with the applicant after approval of the variance tonight. So we would appreciate very much your approval per staff recommendation for the variance request. Thank you.
So we have a couple minutes. I wanted to see if we could scroll through. Do we have the other couple pictures?
Young, if you could please come closer to the microphone.
Okay, sorry. Do we have the ability to move the slides forward? We had a couple pictures that just showed some of the area of constraints. If we have
Hang on, we're going to try to get tech to help you out.
Sure,
there.
sure.
Can you forward a couple slides?
Do you have additional slides that are, oh, you don't, okay. What we showed, and as mentioned, Bob's here, and so the one thing we've had discussion on yesterday with Mr. Brubaker, my neighbor, there's been a longstanding friendship. We've come to the agreement on the buffer, and we're totally fine moving forward with just the one-sided on the buffer. But I wanted to be able to show here what we've also been able to show Bob yesterday. I'm walking the property for a couple hours, that by not getting the variance, the house gets moved over into where the septic area is. That moves us the septic field up to where the property line is. We now have to cut into a whole series of trees. The secondary structure ends up where the driveway is, so now we're cutting a new driveway, more than likely up towards the property. So I think Bob agrees that there's probably more damage to be done if we don't have the variance. And so that came through, a short discussion and some good discussions yesterday. And so come to the agreement that the remaining 25 will be untouched in a perpetual easement. So if for some reason we aren't in that property and we're not the owners long term, that is protected for Bob, that 25 will not be built on or touched, or those trees will be continue to be maintained as a forest. So just wanted to show those. Since we don't have the picture, at least you can see that there is a lot of thought put into that. No, there's actually some photos of the locations.
Oh. Put in the packet.
You probably have them they were in the packet. Yep, those photos that you have in the packet show what would be without the setback and with the setback. The little blue line kind of shows the driveway would be centering where the current drive cut is. It's right where the secondary structure would be without the variance. And that is going to cause a major disruption to additional cutting, additional property, and more than likely the septic field have to be moved into the area where it's the most dense area of the property. So just wanted to make this
Mr. Brubaker is here, and he'll have an opportunity to speak and share his concerns as well. So is that it?
That's it for us. Any questions for us?
Yes, before you run, are there any questions for the applicant?
Where does Mr. Brubaker live? Right to the left of the property, or
The only property, the only really adjacent home that's anywhere nearby is Mr. Brubaker's property. It runs along that same, what would be considered the rear property, so the backside, that lower backside of the property. And so Bob's property and ours adjoin at the lake and run across that back. I think it's considered the west side of the property. Is that?
So adjacent to where the
west
accessory
side.
structure is, that line
Yeah.
would be the Brubaker property
On the
line.
one picture, I'm assuming, because his name is up here?
Yes, that's his lot.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Do you see that, Brenda?
oh yeah,
Okay.
And, okay, any additional questions for the applicant before we're going to do two things. One, we're going to move to public comment.
Yep.
And then you'll have a chance to make a closing statement if needed.
Beautiful.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I've got one.
Yes, go ahead, Hodge.
Within the site plan, is there a proposed pool, or have you accounted for that? Are there plans for a future pool? Has any thought gone into where that's going to be relocated or located?
No plans at this point.
That's a good question because the buffers that you're up against with the waterways are something that we need to be cognizant of.
I gotcha.
And you should be aware of. That leads me to another question related. The sketch here, is that the exact outlines of the house and the accessory structure that you're anticipating?
The accessory structure, yes. The house is a general footprint of the general design. We have not gone into architectural work with the architect, I guess. We have not gone into those architectural drawings at this point until we knew what we were working with in terms of the property. Because again, without the variance, we're talking about dynamiting, stone and removing and putting this in a whole different location. So, but if that's the direction we're heading, that is the footprint of what we're suggesting to the architect based on how we want to see the layout. The direction, the idea is we can't really go down. We don't want this massive structure. We're trying to downsize. We're at that stage of life, so we're really trying to get it to where this thing will sit on there and quietly settle into the property. And so we're actually in that mode of settling away from those kind of things. So the pool thing is probably not in our future, but I guess the question would be is understanding what those variables are if there's ever a desire for that, I guess.
Okay, and so the accessory structure is the footprint that you're anticipating.
It
The
is.
home is conceptual.
Yeah.
And your buffer impact would not exceed that 25-foot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All
And that
right.
would be in the agreement also that we're setting up with Bob on the side that nothing could be done with that property, including, any movement, certainly no structure, but not even any.
Bob being Mr. Brubaker?
Mr. Brubaker, excuse
Okay.
me, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So just to clarify, the 25-foot would be along the whole entire property, not
Yeah.
just where the house is.
That's correct.
That's what the variance would give them, correct?
As it's currently stated.
Okay.
I have one other quick question about the easement that you mentioned. And that probably doesn't have an impact upon getting this variance because that's between you. But is that for access?
No, just
Or-
to maintain a buffer that, right now
Understood.
there'd be a 100-foot buffer between the two. We'd be going to 75, and Mr. Brubaker's real concern is just not even so much for us, but he's, if we were to ever sell the property, which we don't intend to do, that someone would come in and just clear, those areas. One, I don't think under ordinances they can, but just to protect that, we're willing to totally put that into a perpetual easement to make sure that that is not touched and cannot be forested or do anything other than maintain it as a forest area.
What I heard Mr. Adams state was it was a non-disturbance easement that they were working towards.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all.
So with that, we're going to move to public comment. And this will be, as I stated earlier, a little bit different because we do have folks potentially looking to comment from the Zoom meeting as well. We'll break this public comment into two sessions, each totaling 10 minutes. We'll first start with those wishing to speak in favor of this application. And if you're joining us from Zoom, I'll remind you that if you're interested in speaking, you can raise your hand by clicking on the icon labeled Participants at the bottom of your screen, and then click the button labeled Raise Your Hand. If you're calling into the meeting, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. And once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on your microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. Do I have anyone here to speak in favor of this application from the public or to comment? If you would please come forward and state your name and address.
All right, my name is Robert Brubaker. I'm the neighbor that Gary was telling you about.
Okay,
So thank
good.
you for giving me an opportunity to come up and tell you our side of this. I've talked with Gary. Gary's correct. I was a little bit blindsided by this yesterday. I've known that Gary was looking at this property for quite some time. It was been for sale for 20 years. Everybody that's come in and tried to buy this piece of property has run into the same problems and considerations that he's running into. And I understand the need for the variance because we've walked the property and he showed me how the house lays out, how the barn lays out. We always discussed a house. The barn was new to me. I didn't know about the barn until 5 o'clock yesterday. And when he asked for a 25-foot variance, until we actually walked the property, I wasn't aware that there was a barn being placed along that fence line as well. They don't have the slide up now, but our property was the longest stretch at the bottom of the screen. So it's a 30-acre parcel. We've been there for 42 years, and this property has been vacant since it was Owen's farm before Six Hills was built. I grew up there as a kid, and we've never had any plans to develop this property or develop that portion of it or break it up. We've done our best to keep this 30 acres together and going with, what Milton is so famous for is keeping this rural, keeping it very pretty, keeping the rural setting, and keeping the houses away from each other. So when you look at it on paper and you see a 30-acre parcel next to a 10-acre parcel, you wonder, why does a house need to be built 25 feet right off of our fence? That was my concern. If Gary is willing to put the appropriations into the variance, that he will give us that 25-foot buffer from the fence line all the way from the lake, all along our property line there, I don't have any inkling to destroy that buffer that we have any more so than I would like that buffer on his side of the fence destroyed. And I made it very clear to him and his wife, it's not them I'm concerned about. If the property turns over, if something changes, I have to look down the road at what our exposure is for future owners. We all know Milton's been very good about protecting the trees and the green canopy and everything else. But if another buyer comes in, buys this piece of property, and they decide they just want to clear cut it, open all that back up, where does it expose us? I've lost all that buffer, and I don't want to, down the road, once this house is, the ground's broken on it and the house is built, I don't want to say I should have gone up and objected to the variance. What Gary's offered, I think, is more than fair. My parents, who bought the property back in '78, are aware of it. I went over it with them last night and tonight, and they've approved this deal that we made with Gary, as long as they feel like they're protected, the property's protected, and the integrity of everything is protected. We're okay with it.
So, if you don't mind, do you feel that your family can work with Mr. Young in working out this non-disturbance agreement, easement between the parties? Because that's not something that we would put into the record here for this case.
I understand that, and I feel like that's why I needed to stand up and say, hey,
Understood.
We do have an objection to this, so that our objection's on record. I understand. I don't know how this works. I just found out from Mr. Adams yesterday, started speaking to him about how we could make this arrangement, and it becomes basically a deal between Gary and ourselves.
Right.
Doesn't involve you guys, because you're either going to approve or disapprove the variance.
But it's important for me to get an understanding from you. Do you feel that you two can work in good faith on such an agreement?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I thank you for giving me that assurance that, hey, if you did have a problem with this, then we would validate your concerns and not look at granting a variance. Because, again, you look at it on paper, why in the world would you build on 40 acres of land 25 feet away from the fence line?
Well, I'll ask Mr. Young the same question I asked you when he comes back up here.
Well, I understand it now. Like I said, he showed me, but he's up against the same constraints as every other person that looked at that property for 20-something years. We had people driving our driveway that asked us for a right-of-way to get on that property because it's landlocked. They had to build a bridge from Six Hills to get to this piece. So they've had their hands full trying to sell it. And there really is only one place that house can sit because of the wetlands that are there, the floodplains, and the way it's pie-shaped. It's such a long drive. And, of course, everybody wants to be on the lake. But if you move away from the lake, the property gets too narrow to be buildable. So he's in a bind. I understand. But I think he's tried to make it right.
Okay.
Mr. Brubaker, I probably shouldn't even say this, but are you going to be comfortable if we do give him the variance, even though you've not completely made your arrangement as of today? Because once the variance is approved, the variance is approved.
I'm taking Gary's word at it.
Okay.
I trust Gary.
I just want,
I trust Nick. So, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, I am comfortable with it.
I would just say I'm certainly no lawyer, but You're talking about agreement between two parties here that you're going to do this. The city also supports undisturbed buffers, and they get right onto the plats, and they show it as an undisturbed buffer between on a property. I don't know the mechanics of that. I don't know the legality of that. I do know I have one behind my house that we negotiated when some property went in behind us, and we negotiated, and it actually is on the lot. It shows an undisturbed buffer. I don't know if, I'm just cautioned to say, I don't know what you guys are planning, but I think that's different than agreement between two parties. And it probably ought to be looked into a little more. Just my comment.
That's very well said, because David had told me that it would pass from owner to owner. So it wouldn't be something that would just Gary was tied to. It would pass to future owners, which that was my main concern. I'm afraid of that. But to be honest with you, it's like he told me. I found out about this at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Gary and I had a meeting last night where we agreed that he would postpone this meeting, and I would have time to review all of this, and I could have done exactly that. But David has advised him through this agreement that we've reached that he wanted to continue and stay on his schedule and not get pushed back to next month's meeting. So it has put me, ma'am, like you said, in the position of I'm putting a lot of trust and a lot of faith in him. We have a huge investment in this place, as you all can imagine. Anybody that owns property up here knows what this property has become up here. It's the place to be. We're very happy to be here, very honored to be here, and we want to stay exactly where we're at and be good stewards of everything that we've got here. And we've tried to do that the best we can for all of these years. And I'm going to have to put a lot of faith in Gary that I'm not putting this in jeopardy at any point, be it him or any future owners that come down the road.
Understood.
So,
Okay, thank you for your input.
thank you.
Is there anyone else here or on Zoom who is interested in speaking in favor of this application?
Anybody else?
No, we have no other public comment.
Okay, is there, same 10-minute period, is there anyone here or on Zoom who's interested in speaking in opposition to this petition V20-08?
We do not have any public comment
No
for
opposition. Okay. With that, as I said, the applicant has an opportunity to make a closing comment based on what you've heard, and we may have some questions as well.
I guess just in closing, just to say that that would be recorded on the deed itself. So it would be something that would go beyond me. So that is what we are agreeing to, and it wouldn't be just something that's contractual between two, but it would actually be recorded, and that's the intent of this. It started with a conversation of, hey, Bob, can we pay some money to put some tree buffer in there? And it led to probably what's more important to Bob is to actually have what's there just to be protected, and we totally agree to that.
And durable from landowner to landowner down
Absolutely.
in the future.
And there is a level of trust, and I think Bob knows us, and we've been part of this community. We're not coming in from the outside and trying to do much. We've lived 10 years on Doris Road ourselves, directly across from Bob, maybe even 12 years now on Doris Road itself. So we're very familiar with the area, very much want to preserve it, and very much intend to do that with this property here. So I think we've come to a good agreement, whether it was adding buffer or protecting what's there. And I think we're really, I don't think, Bob, you have anything to worry about. You know me well enough to know that we're going to stand behind that. We have no intention of creating a buffer to look any more on his property than he wants to look onto our property. And if this
so
wasn't...
I'm hearing from that you intend to work in good faith to work out an arrangement that's on in the deed.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments in closing before we actually close the public portion of this and reach a determination?
I think we're all set.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Are there
time.
any questions for the applicant?
Bob raised his hand over there.
Go ahead, Kim.
Is it important to you to have the variance for the whole length of the property, or is it just important to have the variance where the structures are?
I guess we've drawn it up to be incorporated across that, because the one we started this with staff, the same question was raised, with the amount of property, is this really even required? And we said, hey, help us understand what we can do, because we don't know. We've got several experts, architects were involved, land planners, and the question is, what can we do? And without minus putting the barn next to the home where they're attached, minus that as a stipulation. We said that really wasn't the preference for us, and didn't think it was a preference for Milton either. We came to the conclusion of making the back. It's hard to determine based on how crazy this lot is, what's the back of the property, what's the rear, and what's the side. So it was made recommendation by staff to say, let's just treat the side, or that what's being called the rear, as a side, and go for a 25-foot easement across there. And we think that makes a lot of sense. And
So you're looking for it to be along the entire length of the property?
That's correct.
Okay.
And at the same note, we're going to go with the variance, or with the easement will go across that same distance. So that same 25-foot buffer from front to back will be addressed in the recorded plat.
Bob, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to state that the board has very often made the approval subject, per the site plan that was submitted. And if it does that, then it would only be where it's shown, and they wouldn't be able to move it unless they come back to the board. And I think that's usually why the board does it that way. They say, look, you're showing it to us one way, and the neighbors agree to it visually the way they see it, but for some reason, it's approved to that site plan. So if it changes, you got to come back in front of the board again and ask for another, another change to it. Otherwise, it would be to that site plan. And the other one is, I just wanted to ask Paul from legal, if we make a condition, if the board decides to make a condition that before permits are issued, that the deed has to show a deed restriction that's been applied, I just want to make sure that maybe the board can make that condition so
I'd ask the
that
city
before
attorney
the
to comment on
permit is
that.
issued, that deed restriction's in there. Otherwise, it sort of leaves it open, right? Okay.
Two comments. First, as to conditioning it to the site plan, I don't believe we really have a site plan, and I think I heard comment that this was kind of an anticipatory drawing of what might go on there. So you'll need to clarify that with the applicant before you establish that as a condition. And I don't know that we have anything specific enough to go in and enforce. And the second, you could impose a condition on the property requiring some sort of easement before building permits are issued, or before just land disturbance permits, or whatever you feel, if you'd like.
Okay.
Just another quick note, too, is that the actual agreement's already been written up and is already in Mr. Brubaker's hands. So this isn't something that's, hey, we'll get to it, when the time's right. It's already been done. It's been documented. It's in hand. It's a draft. So
Still needs to go to an attorney.
But the agreement in its full intent is
We have them out there.
in its full intent has already been created.
So you would not foresee, or you would not have an issue with that being a condition, building permit issuance conditioned on this non-disturbance easement being agreed to?
Not at all.
Thanks for the suggestion, Bob. Any other questions I do have one question for the applicant, if anyone else does. The barn, what's the intended use of that accessory structure?
I have some farm equipment, a couple tractors, and then we also have an old antique 1950 Chevy pickup that I actually was Bob's at one time that we refurbished, my sons and I. And so the intent of the barn will be to store it and have a little place where some finished trucks and cars will be, and also a section of that will be where we'll work on hopefully some more cars going forward.
Okay, so it's not livestock.
It's not livestock, no.
It's not a barn.
Okay.
It's an accessory structure.
Yeah.
Looks like, but isn't.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions before we close the public portion and move to a motion? Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, I'll note that the public comment is closed, and I will open the floor for a motion and a second. I'd make a motion to approve V20-08 to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet along the Brubaker property line, with one condition, that building permit issuance would be conditioned on a non-disturbance easement being recorded in the deed book with the Brubaker property.
Is there any
prior to building permit? Prior to building permit.
Building permit issuance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any particular details of the agreement that you want I mean, theoretically, it could be a
Would
1
you
foot.
make any suggestions other
If-
than it being a
Did they mention a
non-disturbance easement?
25-foot non-disturbance along the entire length? I believe they've agreed to a 25-foot non-disturbance easement, so.
25-foot non-disturbance easement along the Brubaker property line is what I'm, okay.
Was there anything else in that agreement that might need to be added? That was it in the agreement?
I would say, I mean, you can go as much in depth as you want.
I think the intent is they're looking for a non-disturbance and it to be durable with the change of ownership.
Okay, I didn't know if Mr. Brubaker wanted anything else added.
Well,
They-
public comments closed, the public comment is closed, so.
Let me say, they can put, regardless of what you say and condition on, they can go beyond it. If you want, I mean, if you wanted the whole agreement, you could put the whole agreement into your conditions. I wouldn't recommend going to that amount of detail. I think the concept is to
The wording in your motion, Todd, again, I don't know what the town-specific language is, but in the case where I have one, it's specifically called an undisturbed buffer. Now, I don't know if there's something different between an easement and a buffer, but I'm used to the words that would say like a 25-foot undisturbed buffer, and that has a certain context to it, and I think it might even be in the code, an undisturbed buffer, and what that means.
But buffer is, I mean, legally speaking, easement is a legal concept in that is a property right. A buffer is more of an agreement to maintain an area. I mean, you'll get the same effect potentially. I mean, for our purposes, I don't know that we need to require one or the other. I think the point is to get it. It sounds like there will be a document entered.
I guess when I've gotten into this with the arborist for the city because of some activity that these people had done in the undisturbed buffer, and she came out and talked about the fact that an undisturbed buffer had to be, you couldn't clear cut, you couldn't take out so many trees, and there was certain language involved with an undisturbed buffer. And I'm fine if it's the same thing as saying, if it's the same thing as saying an easement, I'm fine. But
you will not non-disturbance easement.
Okay.
This is what that was the language.
I just didn't know if that terminology meant something in the code, undisturbed buffer.
Yeah. First of all, this is not going to be pursuant to code. This is just the zoning condition, so it's not the definition of. We're not imposing something that's in the code. We're just requiring that they enter into that sort of agreement. And the importance of it is what the document says. And typically they will say very similar things. The non-disturbed or undisturbed buffer says a buffer shall be maintained in which you do not disturb anything. The easement says you shall not. We have an easement to prevent any disturbance within the buffer, so you accomplish the same thing.
Okay.
And the second condition is approval according to the concept site plan dated 2/11/2020 to be final designs to be approved by the city architect. So as the city attorney, that's my motion. 1 and 2. Do I have a second?
I second.
The reason I introduced both of those is one, to protect the neighboring property owner, which we've all heard from this evening. Number 2, although we don't have a specific site plan in order to hold them accountable to specific dimensions, we have a concept plan which provides guidance to the city architect in approving a final design. So if this takes on a completely different form, we have something to protect ourselves against.
You'd say substantial compliance with this?
Yes. That's what I'm seeking.
Right.
Do I need to state that?
I think that
Substantial
should be
compliance to the concept plan dated 2/11/2020 to be determined by the city architect. That's the clarity on the second portion of that motion. The other thing I'd point out, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, is Mr. Adams put together a very detailed and perhaps one of the most complete breakdowns of the hardship according to the 4 variance considerations that I think this board has seen. And I think it very clearly expresses why this property should be considered for variance.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this approval motion with two conditions?
Can we confirm a second on the full thing? Because I think you added a second condition at least. Confirm the second as well.
I second.
Yep.
She seconded before I made the second.
Right. I'm just confirming that
condition.
second. Second still stands.
I'll second it again.
Just to recap, and we're looking for a vote on this, the motion is to approve V20-08, two conditions, building permit issuance conditioned on a 25-foot non-disturbance easement along the Brubaker property line on the deed record. And number two, approval based on substantial conformance to the concept site plan dated 2/11/2020, final design to be approved by the city architect. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. This motion passed unanimous. Good luck with your project and continue to work with your neighbors on a final resolution. So we will be moving to V20-09. I want to make sure from city staff, do we have any other attendees that need to move in?
No, I believe everybody is in attendance.
Okay, and also reminding Mr. Reese, if you have any documents to share, to please get those to the tech room. And with that, I will ask staff to please present V20-09, 330 Doris Road.
Case number V20-09, 330 Doris Road. The requested variance is to allow an existing accessory structure to be located in the front yard, Section 64-416I, and to allow a proposed accessory structure to be located in the front yard, Section 64-416I. The site is a 35.90 acre lot located along the north side of Doris Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the Rural Milton overlay. The property has an approved demolition permit that was issued in August of 2018. Applicant is now performing their scope of work with their approved land disturbance permit that was issued in March of 2019, March of 2020. The applicant has the location of their single-family house in the back of the property and is proposing to keep the existing structure on the property that will be in the front of the principal building, Exhibit A and B. In the future, the applicant is proposing to construct a new accessory structure on the property that will be in front of the principal building, Exhibit A. Section 64-416I states that accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall be located within a minimum yard. Since the applicant is proposing to keep the accessory structure on the property and construct an accessory structure on the property in the front yard, a two-part variance is required. On June 2nd, 2020, the Design Review Board did not meet because of the lack of a quorum. Therefore, they had no comment. The staff response: the existing structure on the property is 1,056 square feet and will be used for storage of fertilizers and other hazardous materials, Exhibit A, note number 3. The proposed structure will be a 7,200 square foot barn, Exhibit A. The location of these structures will be greater than 400 feet from Doris Road. The existing structure should be subject to architectural review to be in character with the character area if the first part variance is approved. City staff is working on preserving large lots and the rural character that comes with them. If the second variance is to be approved, the board should condition the size of the proposed accessory structure and subject to architecture review. Allowing the location of the existing accessory structure and proposed accessory structure in the front yard will not cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will be secured and substantial justice will be done for the surrounding properties. Staff recommends approval of this request.
Can you please clarify your points regarding the existing structure, Exhibit A, in its being in compliance with design standards? You said the existing structure should be subject to architectural review.
Correct. So as of right now, if they leave, and Bob and Paul, if you want to interject on this, as the structure sits now in its current state, it's an older building, and if they were to update or make any modifications to said structure, it will be subject to architectural review since it faces a city street. That's just more of a recommendation that staff would give to the board if you were to approve this variance. And Bob, and you're more than welcome to step in if you have any things to say.
I have a couple of questions. I just wanted to.
Go ahead.
I'm not, I guess they're showing a proposed house. I just wanted to make sure that the permit was issued for it. I think you said it was, but I just.
For the land disturbance permit, yes, and for the house, yes.
And for the house, yes, right? I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that there is one. Because on cases like this, with accessory structures located in the front yards, we wanted to make sure that, and the board's always asked that the accessory structure be subordinate to the main. So a 7,200 square foot building, it's up to the board to determine if that's subordinate.
So that was one of my questions. The building permit for the home equals what square foot?
I believe it was roughly around 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
So this says 11,000.
I'm sorry, 11.
11,091 on the site plan. Thank you for clarifying. And any other comments, Bob?
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure, maybe during the presentation, the 11,000, is that like a two-story, so it's really 6,000 and 6,000 footprint? I just don't know because the accessory structure, the board's always said, Bob, make sure that when it comes in to describe it so that you'll know whether or not it's subordinate or not, size-wise.
Well, I think we could look at the footprint of the home relative to the 7,200 square foot pad and see that the pad is subordinate to the home.
Yeah.
In footprint.
Yeah, and I'm sure the applicant will.
Right, okay. But specific to my question and clarification, the existing non-conforming structure, non-conforming in the sense that it's in the front yard, would it be subject to architectural review and bringing it up to current design standards? That's a question for staff. Is that a requirement based on this variance?
Only if it gets renovated.
Yeah, so only if it gets renovated, it would be up to city standards.
Okay, we'll discuss that or clarify that with the applicant and what their intent is as well. Any other questions for staff? Okay, with that, I would ask Mr. James and or Mr. Reese to come present, or both.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese, Brumlow Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing the James family in their application for a variance to allow two accessory structures in the front yard. As I'm sure you are aware, the Milton ordinance is that all accessory structures are to be behind the primary structure. The intent, I think, was to control in subdivisions or smaller lots where we didn't have accessory structures built against the front building line 60 feet or so off the road. In this case, the house on a almost 40-acre parcel is located in the rear 1/5 of the property. It kind of precludes being able to use any of the front when you're going to the strict adherence to the letter of the ordinance. As we stated, I think, in the letter of intent, I think we meet the 4 criteria for need for the variance. The size of the land, the location of the house, the fact that this not only is an existing structure to preserve, it's an existing pad, area of land, or the trees have been removed, it's been pre-graded. Any other locations are going to require removal of trees, land disturbance that the James family does not want to undertake. The reason they purchased this property is they wanted a house in a rural setting in the woods, away from the street, and they wanted to raise their family in a rural situation. And as those of you who have a farm background know, there are need for accessory structures. You need to be able to park your tractor or your skid steer or your equipment under a shelter. You may need, you need a place to store your tools. You need a workshop. And in this case, he needs a place to place fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, those things out of the weather, out of, in a safe area. So we're incorporating the existing structure. I would, if I could have the original survey showing the original conditions placed. So it would be, go ahead and try that one. Can you scan down? Down, 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 down. Come on through.
I think we've got it. It's from gas.
Okay, you've got that. All right, you have the survey. I would like for it to be on the screen, but it's
too.
not.
So I'm okay waiting a minute to get it up there. I think it's important for people to see this is a 30-acre, 30-plus acre parcel.
And there was an existing a house from 40 years ago with outbuildings and all, and we went through the application for demolition of the existing house and the old rundown barns. And I just kind of wanted to demonstrate. Cody, you don't have that loaded on yours?
Cody, does the overhead projector work?
Okay, go to survey right there. Go up one.
Maybe it's there. Oh, maybe that's it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. So this was the state of the property when the James family purchased. And I don't know.
So that's 7,200. It was formerly a tennis court.
Yes.
Okay.
So to repurpose that area that's already cleared and graded, that was the intent. And if you see where the two old livestock barns towards the rear of the property, that's roughly, and we'll see on the site plan, the location of the new residence that's under construction. And the building to the west of the one-story brick house is the structure. I think it's misidentified as a guest house. It doesn't have a restaurant. It never was a guest house. But anyway, that is the structure that we're wanting to keep. So I think this gives you an idea of the conditions prior to their purchase and why, the existing driveways, the existing graded areas, the existing tree removal that was there. So if I could get a copy of the site plan.
While he's pulling that, how many structures have you already demoed with approval on the property?
3 or 4? 3. Yeah.
The house.
Where was the original house?
Well, ma'am, that was what we just had up on the
That was
screen.
next to the quote, guest house.
Do you want us to go back to the survey?
Okay, so originally, the structure was in the backyard that you now want to have in the front yard.
Yes. Well, it was. It was not behind.
One was in
It
the
was in the
side.
side.
There it is right there, Ms. Keller.
Okay, so you'll see the one-story brick was the primary residence. And then over to the west, the rectangle is the structure. So it was technically behind the front building line. So yes,
And the tennis court that now is going to be another.
yes, there will be the barn. the workshop and the equipment storage. Okay? So if we could have the site plan. So you'll see in the northern quadrant, the proposed residence that's now under construction. The existing pad that was formerly a tennis court that will be the site of the proposed building, and then the existing building that's there. And I'd like you to note the distances from Doris Road and the lack or the fact that they're so far away.
What is Exhibit A, which is the former guest house and the tennis court? What is the distance from the road?
I'm going to have to guess. That sideline is 542 feet there. So I'm going to say 450 on the proposed barn and 400 on the existing structure.
Okay.
According to Google Earth, it was 500 feet and 600 feet from Doris Road. Yeah.
It's because the road is bowing out if you did a perpendicular distance. And so could we have the pictures, please? Okay, so this is the existing structure. As you know, this was an abandoned residence and everything, so this is the shape that it was in. They're proposing to remove the blue awning and repaint and, I guess, refurbish, but not, there will be not a remodeling, but a refurbish of it. So the blue awning is going. If we could go to scroll to the next picture there. So it will be newly painted, refurbished, but not remodeled. Okay. If we could go to the next pictures.
On the top?
Well, that's just the Google, but there should be.
He's got them there.
Yeah. Oh.
What other pictures are you looking for,
I
Mr.
think
Reese?
it's site pictures.
Are those on the bottom here?
Try that one. I hate this, but I'm not controlling, so try that one.
And then now the bottom.
Okay, so this is as you're driving along Doris Road, and the view back, and if you really blew that up, you could probably glimpse a picture of the existing, or a glimpse of the existing structure. And he's going to scroll through as we drive by. Now notice the topography. So 100 feet behind that crest of that hill, on the back side of that slope, is the proposed barn on the existing tennis court. Completely invisible from anyone driving along the street. So if we could go to the next picture.
You can actually only see the well house, the pump house from there.
So there. So I just wanted to demonstrate for someone, if you haven't ridden by the site, you could get a feel for what you would be seeing from the road. Okay, could we advance? Yes. So this is just going along their frontage along Doris Road. And once again, if you know exactly where to look in the building, you might catch a glimpse of the brown, but it's very unobtrusive. Okay, can we go? All right, no, it's just same deal. Just keep scrolling. I think I've tried to get that point across. Keep scrolling. This is the existing drive to, all right, the next picture, please. Okay. So we have pictures of the concept of the proposed barn. And this is concept, or this is what their plan of it's going to. We don't have finalized, but this is what we're looking for: a rustic, that's barn in appearance, that's multi-use, and there should be one more. Yeah. Okay. So that's that, and then we have a schematic. I think that was the very first picture. Yes. Okay. So this is kind of a more of a working drawing. So I've tried to hit the highlights. This is a little bit different for me. I'm not in control of the scroller, so I'm bouncing around a little bit, and I apologize on that fact. But the key point that I want to get across is that the James family they wanted a rural atmosphere. They purchased a very large tract of land on Doris Road that was slated for development, and they were able to take it off and put that in. And to maintain what they want, with a house in the back, they need a variance for the structures. And it's my feeling with several years' experience and being around since the formation of Milton, the intent of the ordinance was to try to limit the construction of accessory structures on smaller lots and close to the road that kind of overpowered the primary residence. And I think in this particular case that you would see that is not the case whatsoever. And by allowing this variance, we are preserving a large tract and the rural feel and the character that differentiates Milton from our other metro area cities. And I would hope that you would see that allowing this variance would be in the benefit of the community at large and the public. So I know I've bounced around a little bit. It's a little new for me tonight. It was a little different. So we would be glad to try to entertain any questions you might have. Mr. James can articulate his building foresight more than I can on that particular thing. But anything else we can go. I mean, the site plan is specific. It's not concept on locations, and we would be fine with making it a part of the record. So,
okay.
Thank you.
I have two questions. The intended use of the 7,200 square foot pad, the intended use of that barn would be?
So we have, as Scott mentioned, we have farm equipment, so tractors, side-by-sides, and that kind of stuff.
So not livestock?
And then no livestock there. No livestock in that building, no. Potentially a wood shop, like just a small workshop.
No living quarters?
No living quarters at all.
Okay.
No.
My second question was in regards to the existing structure in terms of a facelift, not a remodel. What are your intentions in terms of making improvements to that?
So I'm a little offended by the pictures that are up there because a lot has happened to clean that up since. We just want to put new siding on it and use it as we were using it today, which is storage for, we have fertilizer and seeds and that kind of stuff.
And the roof and everything is in good shape?
The roof's in roughly. It's okay as far as I know. I'm not an expert there. So, but if we need to replace the roof, we would do that. But definitely the siding is just, it sat vacant for a long time. And it's called a guest house. It's literally a square box with a concrete floor. So.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, I did drive by there today, and I was able to see the concrete pad, but I could not see the existing structure. I mean, from either way, that seemed to be pretty well hidden.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what the breakdown of the square footage is of the proposed primary residence? Like per floor, or is it one level?
Our vision was a sprawling ranch. We have 4 kids, 3 are here tonight. And as we started doing that, it got so monstrous that we went ahead and put the kids' rooms upstairs. So I don't know the exact square footages, but the main level has, I'm going to call it 8,500 square feet on the ground, maybe 9,000. And there's about, I don't know exactly, 1,500 square feet for the 4 bedrooms upstairs.
Okay, so it'll still be larger than the barn.
We're a little, yes,
Yeah.
considerably.
The site plan, the footprint is to scale
Okay.
that you have.
So it's substantially larger.
Substantially, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant before we move to public comment?
Was there a reason why you did not rebuild where the original house was? Then you wouldn't have needed a variance at all. Everything still would have been behind it, right?
Yeah, he wanted the house away from the road. He did not. He wanted it tucked away, privacy. So that was, and topography for the house that on the site plan, there was a lot less grading. There was going to be a massive amount of earth fill to put the footprint of the proposed house on the crest of that ridge.
I believe the existing house, it was maybe 2,500 square feet, and we're at 8,000 square foot of a footprint.
Yeah, and
so it would have been, the most significant reason is we just wanted to be back away from road noise, which there's not much on Doris, there is some, but we want to be back away, and with young kids, we want to be back away from the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move to public comment. Same as with this prior case, we will do 2 10-minute sessions, each 10-minute max. First session would be for anyone here to speak in favor of application V20-09. Do we have anyone interested in speaking on Zoom or on call?
I do not have anybody.
Just as a reminder, if you are on Zoom, click on the participants button on the bottom of your screen and raise hand. If you're calling in, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Is there anyone here present that is interested in speaking in favor of this application? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? Mr. Reese, Mr. James, you have an opportunity to make a closing comment if you care. Before we move to closed public comment. So for the record, Mr. Reese and Mr. James are finished with their presentation. I will make note that the public comment is closed. And before I do that, are there any questions for staff? None? Okay, then I'll make note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second. I'll make a motion to approve V20-
Todd,
Yes.
sorry, can I ask the attorney a question? Sorry.
Yes.
My concern is the previous request we had before us that we denied, which was a similar large structure that was in front of the house, which now I think is going to court, right?
It is in litigation.
Yeah. So just in being consistent.
Okay. Well, hold that for discussion.
Okay. Sorry.
A quick response would be every variance is an individual look at each set of facts, and while it involved a front yard variance, if I recall, there was an issue whether it was subordinate or not.
Well, they never did seek a variance on that. They went on and did it prior to the variance. So that is true.
So.
Okay.
So I was making a motion to approve V20-09 according to the site plan by Brumbelow Reese and Association dated December 6, 2019, which states the location of the existing building as well as the existing concrete pad. Do I have a second?
I second that, Todd.
We're in discussion. We have 4 primary considerations for variances. The spirit and intent, this is a 35-plus acre plot that the applicant has already invested significant money in improving. These structures are using existing footprints of prior structures, which will be an improvement to the land overall, not visible from the street. And certainly extraordinary and exceptional situations, considering the fact that we're reusing existing, making one compliant and reusing an existing pad. And in terms of substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, it is 35 acres. There really is no impact to surrounding properties. They're not visible from adjacent areas. Public safety, health, and welfare are secured. Again, we're minimizing overall impact and actually making significant improvements, encouraging these type of developments to exist in Milton versus large subdivisions. That's my rationale in seeking an approval.
I'd like to add that we're protecting the rural viewshed by having the new structure all the way in the back of the property, and there's very little that's really visible from the street at this point. And also piggybacking on what the chairman mentioned about using the existing pads and some of the existing locations that were previously cleared.
Any further discussion?
Did you add to make it conditional on the size of the accessory structure, the principal residence, primary residence?
I made it contingent on the site plan, which notes the footprints of each of the structures.
Okay, so it's the proposed residence on here is 11,000. It's just gone down to 8,000, which we were just told verbally.
No, 8,000 on the main, and then the rest will be upstairs.
Right.
Right. So is it, maybe we can ask the city architect if it's based upon the footprint or the entire square footage?
Is what based on?
Whether it's subordinate to the...
There's not a technical definition of that in the code. So one could look at all of those factors in determining what constitutes subordinate.
On this drawing, this is to scale. This is what is being built.
Right. Well,
it's
proposed. It's gone down.
It's building permits issued. It's being built.
Oh, okay. I thought you said it had gone down to, it had changed from
Well,
here.
maybe it changed from their initial design concepts, but now a building permit has been issued for what we see in this drawing.
Okay.
I know what you're saying, Brenda. The footprint, the footprint is not 11,000 square feet.
Right. That notation on the site plan, or is it called a site? Whatever this document is called, is the total square footage of the residence, not the footprint. So the 11,000 square feet is the total square footage, which includes the second level.
Second level, okay.
The testimony or the statement from the applicant was that there was 8,500 square feet on the footprint.
Right, the footprint. And that's what I wanted clarification on. Is it subordinate, based upon the footprint? Or the total square footage? It can be either or.
It would depend on lots of factors, some of which may include both the total. I mean, if you have a 4-story building that's on 5,000 square feet, that's maybe more significant than 1 story with 7,000 square feet. So I can't say one or the other is the applicable requirement or measurement. You take it all into consideration and determine whether or not
maybe
it's
just to
subordinate.
clarify for the record, can the city architect or staff confirm that the structure is subordinate to the primary residence? Yes or no?
Yeah, I would interpret it as being subordinate.
Okay.
Because the existing residence is larger.
Does that help you, Brenda,
Yeah,
for the record?
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that couldn't change. But if this is already permits pulled and this is how it's going to be, then
Okay.
that's fine.
This project's been going on for quite a while, is
Yeah.
my understanding, in terms of land disturbance and getting this property into its current condition, rehabbed, if you will, from distressed. Okay, so is there any further discussion? Motion is to approve per the site plan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion passed unanimous. Good luck with your project. Next item on our agenda is V20-10, 600 Hickory Flat Road. Do we have the applicant here for that? Yes, okay. Would staff please present?
Case number V20-10, Hickory Flat, sorry, 600 Hickory Flat Road. The requested variance is to allow an accessory structure to be located in the front yard, section 64-416I. The site is a 4-acre lot located along the north side of Hickory Flat Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure that will be in front of the principal building. Section 64-416I states that accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. Since the applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure in the front yard, a variance is required. On June 2nd, 2020, the Design Review Board did not meet because of the lack of a quorum. Therefore, they have no comment. Staff response. The existing house was constructed in 2002, and the applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure that will be in the front of the principal building, Exhibit B. The existing conditions, Exhibit A, show the house facing the western property line, which is the side setback. The proposed accessory structure will be on the southern portion of the property, that is the front yard, Exhibit B. The location of the accessory structure will be in respect to the orientation of the house. The septic location is to the north of the single-family house, which will not allow for the accessory structure to be located. If this variance is to be approved, it must meet architectural standards. Allowing the location of the proposed structure will not cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will be secured, and substantial justice will be done for the surrounding properties. Staff recommends approval of this request.
Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question on attached to the house. I mean, what makes it an accessory structure versus being part of the house? It's a garage that seems to be attached to the house, or
That's the one that's there. The
Existing is
below it.
oh, am I looking at the wrong drawing?
Yeah, so Exhibit A is the existing.
Sorry, I'm looking at the. And let me just take a quick look at this other one. Well, looking at the other drawing, it still looks like it's attached to the house.
No, proposed, see it down here? You're looking at this one,
Yeah.
which is there. That's the
Gotcha. So what is that? Okay. I'll withdraw it, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions for staff? Can you please clarify, based on our looking at this drawing from Foothills Land Survey dated 3/4/20, the existing septic location, and do we have this site plan to pull up on the screen? Yes, no?
I don't,
Doesn't look like it. The existing septic is noted as to the north. So if I'm looking at the front of the house, would that be to the area left of the arbor? Okay. I also noted this property was heavily wooded, so we can talk about that as well. Any other questions for staff? Okay, let's move then to the applicant. If you would please come forward to share more about your project. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, good evening. Our names are Bruce and Nanette Fine. We live at 600 Hickory Flat Road, Milton, Georgia, 30004. And we have before you an application for a variance, which we believe will not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And there are extraordinary and exceptional situations that pertain to the property. First of all, we believe that on a topographic basis, this is the only location for the additional structure that we want to build. Additionally, while per the specifics of the zoning, it appears that it's in the front of the house, or the rule specs call for it being in the front of the house. Actually, it's located to the right and to the rear by virtue of the unique circumstances of this home. We live in a horseshoe area. Our driveway goes up, and the property is actually located on the side of the property begins effectively on the north side of the road, and effectively our home faces the west. So actually, what we're looking to build, as you view the home and consistent with the structure of the home, this outbuilding, this additional structure will be located to the right and rear. Additionally, our septic, the location of where our septic is, would prevent us from building on the location of the septic, which is actually on the other side of the home itself. Additionally, this area of topography is relatively flat for us in an area of constant rolling. Also, it's actually located in an area where there's far less trees versus having to cut down other hardwoods.
Which we don't want to do.
Okay. Can you walk us through a little bit of what conceptually or actually you're looking to build? I see some drawings in Exhibit C.
Sure. Absolutely.
Do we have a picture of that to share?
We've submitted a number of pictures.
Yeah, that's what I want to see if tech has that available. You don't for this? Okay. It doesn't have the application?
I do have the photographs that the applicant did submit to me.
Well, I'm not speaking of the photographs of the site. I was speaking of the Exhibit C.
Right here. Sorry. I do have some copies I can pass around.
No, I was really more for the public. That's fine. If we don't have it electronically, that's fine. If you just walk us through what the proposed garage design is for our understanding.
Okay, the proposed design itself is it's an additional garage so that I can continue with a hobby of mine, which is working on antique cars. Effectively, we're talking about 850 square feet approximately. There will be a single front garage door, a double garage door. On the back of it, there'll be a little bit of an extension for a build out for an office. And it'll have clearance so that I can lift a car up. There's no business being conducted here. Over the course of my life, I might be lucky to restore 3 cars. They take years. So there's additionally, there's no public that's coming in and out. So this is strictly for our own private use so that we can pursue our own enjoyment.
Also, the design of the structure is going to basically kind of mimic similar siding, similar roof lines and whatnot of our existing home. So,
Thanks for pointing that out. So siding, roof materials to complement the house?
yes, and our plan is actually to, once we get that garage, we're going to paint the garage and paint the rest of the house. So everything will be matching colors. And we need a new roof on our house, too, so we'll have the same roof colors as well.
Okay. And so you're comfortable with that being a condition for the structure? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
We also intend to put in a line consistent with after it's completed. We just have to determine what trees we've taken out or not. We intend to put in a berm, subject to the right way to do it. We don't know exactly, can't give you dimensions on it because we need to complete the property. But we intend to put a berm in between us and the home and plant trees because we're also concerned about maintaining the rural nature of our environment. We want to be sure that while we don't believe in any manner this structure will be visible, we want to be sure to additionally maintain that privacy. Additionally, it'll benefit us from a noise level. Because that area of right near Birmingham Crossroads is getting pretty loud in terms of how successful our neighborhood has been. So we're looking for that additional privacy, and we know it also benefit in terms of placing the structure and precluding it being in any way a nuisance to the public.
Okay. We oftentimes refer to that as some sort of landscape screening subject to the arborist review. I'm curious, though, I'm confused with where you're anticipating providing some screening. Is it between Hickory Flat Road and the proposed structure?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
in that 60-foot
That's
buffer
correct.
area? Okay.
Yeah.
It looked pretty heavily vegetated.
Yeah.
We actually want more because the traffic on that road has become more and more pronounced, and so we
So you're
feel
looking
that-
for something more dense?
Yes.
So we're
Okay.
just trying to get a better barrier. It is very wooded, and when you're driving down Hickory Flat, you really can't. In the winter, you can see our home, but it's not easy.
So you're looking for more evergreen type
More
of
evergreens.
and
That's
just
exactly it.
something that'll help more with sound, really, to buffer it.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Any other points to highlight?
I think we reached out to all of our neighbors that would, could see it. The property that is, I'm not as good as east, west, north, but anyway, when I'm standing in my house, it's behind us.
So the property if you're looking at your house, property to your left.
If you're on the road, it's the property to the right. So if you're standing on the road looking at our property, it's the one to the right.
Okay.
They have 20 acres, I believe, of land, and they have a very big field that runs between their property and our property. They have no intention of selling or building, and we, showed them our plan, went over and met with them, and they had no problems with it. And then our other neighbor on the other side, who has happily come here tonight, he has also reviewed it, and they don't have any issues with it as well.
And we believe you have written communications verifying that.
Can staff confirm, do you have letters of support? They'll look into that while we're continuing.
And the other thing is, we really just candidly looked at where we could place this on our property with the least disturbance of trees. I love trees and like having them around, and the place where we're putting it is actually a place where the previous owners had, anyway, they were trying to grow some things, but it didn't get enough. They were trying to grow vegetables, but there was not enough sunlight. So there's not much trees in that one area, or the trees that were there were really very, very small little saplings. So
If you were to go further to the rear of your property, it looked like there was quite a bit of heavily wooded.
It is.
And there was a lot of topography,
Yes.
steep slopes.
yes, very, very steep.
Okay.
So that also precludes us really from building on that side.
It also would place the building within sight than of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, more so, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Hodge.
On the site plan, it references gravel and proposed gravel. Is there any intention where it says proposed gravel to go to concrete, or are you guys planning on doing gravel all the way off of the driveway?
Yeah, we expect to use pea stone. We don't need any type of impervious kind of surface.
Sounds like someone's spoken to you about that.
It's and we share everyone's concern.
Yes.
We want to have the least impact as possible.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Mr. Kurt?
Yeah, on this, we have it as Exhibit C. It's this little picture of, I think, of what the proposed garage is going to look like.
Yes, that's correct.
If everybody's with me. Is that orientation, is that flipped around? I guess what I'm getting at is what you would see from the road is the side of that garage?
That's correct.
Is there any intent to
if you can see it?
Oh,
that's correct. The orientation would be the side of the garage from the road.
And at this point, you don't think it can be seen, or you possibly?
I think you might be able to see the top, the very top of it, but you're not going to see. We don't believe you're going to see actually the full face of that side.
Okay. I guess my question was going to be if there's any thought in terms of making that side of the garage more visually attractive, since that's the side that faces the road, which is what this all comes about in terms of having a building that's in front of the house. I don't know, maybe in your discussions with the architect or somebody else, you could look at making that, you know what I'm saying?
I'll help you with that. So I'm going to ask the city architect to speak. So whatever we approve here will be subject to architect review by the city architect. So with that, Bob, maybe can you comment? This is the homeowner presenting it a little bit different, right?
Yes.
Some considerations that you may face.
Yeah, so generally when we get an accessory structure that's this close to the street, whether it's visual or not, whether you put landscape or not, we do want the building to have much more design elements to it, more barn style, windows facing the street, and more of an architectural character to the building. So it's something I'd have to sit with you all and kind of go through, but it wouldn't be exactly what you have here. This is very simple. It'd have to have a lot more Milton character to it.
Well, be careful when you say a lot more. It'd have to have character.
It'd have to have more character. Well, we'd be concerned
versus
about
a solid
garage
wall
door.
facing the street, I
We
think
don't
is
want
where.
it to be just a plain garage
So you
door.
could
It
have a
has to
couple
have
windows.
like a carriage-style door, some barn-style door to it. And on the side, same thing, the materials and the style of it.
We're consistent with it, with the look of it, and in terms of we appreciate that our plans will need to be yet finalized, and we're good with recommendations, requirements that place it in a more attractive way, which just needs to fit in with the overall economics. But we appreciate what you're saying. Adding windows, we're glad to do it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Generally, it's going to be the door, the garage door, the windows, the siding, and just the character of it. But I can go through it with you and make it look a little bit more
Understood.
stylish.
We would like
So
it though
I
to
can
stay,
put it on.
keeping it in style with the home, the original structure of the home. So want
Yeah.
to just make sure we can keep that in, so it all flows together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work with you on that.
Yeah.
But I concur with Don that it needs to be lifted up a little bit more because when it's this close to the road, we generally make sure that it has that architectural character that meets the rural view shed.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like a garage, a box garage, yeah. So
Right.
I think you understand, and
We
given
understand.
you're the homeowner, we wanna make sure-
There's a compromise that we can reach in terms of looking like a contiguous portion of the home, so it doesn't look like a garage. At the same time, I mean, it's not a barn, but we appreciate.
Bob's pretty good at this stuff.
We understand.
You'll be impressed.
Right.
I'll help you out.
Thank you.
So I know you're not in here every month. We are, and we've seen a lot of magic that he's done for our city.
Real good.
So any other points to highlight before we move to public comment? Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, if you take a seat, I think you've seen the routine here. We'll open for public. You'll have a chance to make a closing comment if you care.
Okay, real good. Thank you.
So with that, do we have it could be 2 10-minute sessions. We're moving into public comment. First 10-minute session in total is to speak in favor. Second 10-minute session will be able to speak in opposition. Cody, do we have anyone available online that's interested in speaking?
Not participating from Zoom, but you did ask me to see if they did have from the neighbors. They do have it from a Lauren Robertson located at 650 Hickory Flat Road, and another approval from a David Morgan, and I did not get the address on that. So two.
So the
approvals.
650, I believe, would be the 20 acres adjacent to the property?
Yes.
All right, and the other one would be the adjoining neighbor, which is a flag lot behind.
Correct.
Okay. So moving then to public comment, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward. Announce your name and address for the record.
Did he fill one?
All right.
Did he fill one?
My name's Doug Fix. I'm at 590 Hickory Flat Road. I'm essentially the house behind these folks from the road. For some reason, my letter was not in your records. We gave an approval letter.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're here to speak.
They're very honorable neighbors. They believe in integrity of Milton and also the development. I happened to help form the development in 1989, so, we're ears up on anything that goes on there. And this meets our approval, and wish them well with it.
Okay.
I'm also a car enthusiast. So
Thank you very much for speaking. Anyone else here to speak in favor? Okay. Do we have anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. and Mrs. Fine, you have an opportunity to make a closing comment, if you care, or we'll move into a motion. Your case rests. With that, I will make note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve V20-10, 600 Hickory Flat Road, to allow an accessory structure to be located in the front yard, subject to the proposed garage or accessory structure being approved from an architectural standard by the city architect. Additionally, the arborist approving the landscape along Hickory Flat Road. And this is all in accordance with Foothills Land Surveying, LLC, site plan dated 3/4/2020.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Brenda. So we have a motion to approve, subject to city architect review, city arborist review of the landscape buffer along Hickory Flat Road, and subject to the site plan dated 3/4/2020. Is there any discussion?
Can I say, just to be clear, technically the drawing is designated as a boundary survey? I imagine that, is it the large document that was in the package? And I didn't know if there was anything else that I was missing. But that is the document that you're speaking of, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it list? Oh, it is listed as a boundary survey. I understand what you're saying now. Foothills Land Survey, boundary survey, dated 3/4. But it does provide measurements and
It
such.
does have relative measurements, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? I do think it's worth noting that the four considerations in this case, the applicant has demonstrated all four of those considerations and qualified those in their application. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. This motion passed unanimous. Good luck with your project. The next step, please stay in contact with the city staff, city architect, and city arborist, as those were conditions noted for your application to move forward. And good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next and final primary variance application for this evening is application V20-111049 Summit View Lane. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Would staff please present?
Case number V20-111049 Summit View Lane. The requested variance is to allow an accessory structure to be located in the side yard setback, section 64-416I. The site is a 1-acre lot located along the south side of Summit View Lane in the neighborhood subdivision. It is located AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The single-family house was issued a certificate of occupancy in May of 2019. The pool permit was issued in 2019 and is currently under construction. The applicant is now proposing to construct an accessory structure, an open-air cabana that will encroach into the side yard setback, Exhibit A. Section 64-416I states that the accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. Since the applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure in the side yard setback, a variance is required. On June 2nd, 2020, the Design Review Board did not meet because of the lack of a quorum, therefore they have no comment. Staff response. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure that will encroach into the side yard setback, Exhibit A. The restriction of the drainage easement and the setbacks make the location of the accessory structure difficult to place. When the applicant proposed to construct the pool, a drainage easement on the western side of the property had to be relocated to make the pool not encroach. However, the location of the accessory structure can be located on the eastern side of the pool. Allowing the reduction of the side yard setback for an accessory structure will cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will not be secured, and substantial justice will not be done for the surrounding properties. Staff recommends denial of this request.
Cody, can you please restate the ordinance that we're looking at a variance against? In this case, this is an accessory structure. It also includes a fireplace, and I just want to make sure we have clear guidance in regards to the location of allowable location per the ordinance.
Just give me one quick second.
Specifically, want a refresher on the fireplace locations.
Okay. This is section 64-77 2B2. Outdoor fireplaces and outdoor uncovered kitchens, whether standalone or constructed as a part of a patio, retaining wall, or other structure, may only be located in the rear yard and may extend no more than 10 feet into the minimum rear yard. In no case shall an outdoor fireplace be located closer than 10 feet to a property line.
So I understand the last part, not to be located closer than 10 feet to a property line. Can you restate the previous 10-foot?
Yeah, so I'll reread the whole thing. Outdoor fireplaces and outdoor uncovered kitchens, whether stand-alone or constructed as a part of a patio, retaining wall, or other structure, may only be located in the rear yard and may extend no more than 10 feet into the minimum rear yard. In no case shall an outdoor fireplace be located closer than 10 feet to a property line.
Okay. So as that ordinance is written and pertaining to the fireplace location, this variance request is not an issue pertaining to the fireplace.
Correct. How I read this, and Paul, you can interject on this. Since this is part of the accessory structure, that would be, it's not standalone by itself. Or if I'm just, that's how I interpreted it.
What's the section number again?
It's 64-77 or 77.
Because it does say, or part of.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's 2B2.
Let Paul read it.
No. Yeah, I'll let you read it.
77. I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to complicate it, I'm just trying to clarify.
Okay, so what is the question now?
That this accessory structure, although it contains a fireplace, that it including a fireplace does not warrant or create a variance request. The accessory structure itself is what creates the variance request.
As I see in the drawing, it is approximately, I mean, within inches of 12 feet, and the requirement is 10 feet.
Right.
So it meets that specific requirement.
Thank you. Are there any questions, additional questions for staff?
Just to clarify, I think maybe what Todd, I'm seeing what you're saying. The fireplace is on the side of the structure. It's not on the rear of the structure. So your comments were there's no, fireplaces are not allowed to be on the side or front of the structure. If I understood that first portion correct.
I thought it said, the fireplace was supposed to be in the rear yard.
It's the rear yard. It's
Well, but I've come across this.
we've seen these before. That's why I'm trying to get clarification.
Yeah. It's my understanding.
And there's
They're not being
considerations
side yard.
regarding the neighbors and impacting the neighbors and risk of fire between properties.
Well, I knew it as visibility from the fireplace from the road. That's the way it was interpreted to me once upon a time.
That's right. I concur. Interpret it too. It's always done that way.
Is that correct, Bob?
Yeah. I believe Jason's correct that the way I always interpret it is fireplaces, whether freestanding or part of a structure, have to be located in the rear yard and specifically not in the side yard. Same thing with outdoor kitchens, whether freestanding or part of a structure should not be in the side yard.
And is this considered the side yard?
It is.
Okay.
I was wondering about that.
So when staff looked at this, when I looked at this, I mean, we can place this structure behind the residence. There's sufficient amount of room in there to place the structure in another area next to the pool, but behind the residence, keeping it out of sight and keeping it out of the side yard.
Okay. So can the city attorney confirm Bob's assessment of this being a side yard location and not a rear yard location, and therefore itself being out of compliance?
Get the definition of side yard anywhere? Use my phone. What's it? Yard side. Yard side means a yard, which is not a front or rear yard. Yeah, this is one I would have to. There is a portion of it which appears to be closer to or further from the front or further from the rear yard line than a portion of the structure. The definition of a rear lot takes it to the distance between the rear lot line and a structure. And this has got an awkward, jagged rear footprint, and I would have to actually take some time to evaluate how this has been treated in terms of evaluating whether or not it constitutes within the rear yard, because it appears to be behind the closest portion of the house, and I would need to look at interpretation and talk to the director about how he has interpreted where the rear lot line is drawn, because I'd need to do a little bit more evaluation of the background on this and talk to the director about any interpretations.
So if we approved it, or what we would be approving the structure, but the location of the fireplace would be subject to another variance that he would have to then.
You would be approving a variance to a particular provision, not, as far as I understand, not a provision which requires it to be located in the rear, or not, it prevents it from being in the side yard, which effectively requires it to be in the rear yard. Because if they do not meet that and you haven't issued a variance to that particular provision, it could not be built. They would still have their variance to whatever, if they receive a variance, they would still have their variance to that, but they would have to come and get another variance if it was determined that it constituted the side yard.
So I can have clarification. They're interpreting the side yard goes completely back from the edges of the house. So your backyard has a side yard to it? Is that what we're saying here?
Is that how the staff is interpreting?
Can there be a side yard and a backyard in the same place? Can this be side yard and backyard?
If you look at the plat, which is what they drew, you'll see they show 50 feet going across the back of the property, 25 feet along the side, 60 feet along the front. And all plats are done that way. So that would constitute this structure being in the side yard. I mean, that's how the plats are set up, it's just the way it's drawn.
Well,
Otherwise, the plot would be differently. It would say wherever your house is, it would be changing. So when people come in,
So that's what I'm just saying. So my side yard goes all the way down
to the rear yard,
to the edge.
to the 50-foot backs. Yeah, 50 feet is your rear yard, and then it's 25 on each side, and then 60 in the front that goes across the whole.
So what you're referring to, Bob, is the dotted lines which note the 60-foot build line from the front, the 25 side, and the 50 from the rear.
And that's exactly how the plats are approved, and they're shown with the yards on.
So based on that, do you need any further interpretation?
No, well, with all respect, that's actually the building setback line. The yard is, in fact, based on the structure per the definitions in the zoning ordinance. But I can go back to it.
We're just trying to get clarification now so that you don't run into bigger issues down the road.
Based on the definition, and I want to be consistent with prior interpretations, but as I read this, the rear yard is only from the rear, anything basically to the structure. So the side, and then staff can correct me if they've interpreted differently, but the side runs all the way along the side of the house to the property line, the entire length of the side property lines. Then there's a internal portion that's the rear yard between the house and the rear lot. There's a front yard that's between the front of the house and the street, effectively. So you have 4 portions, 2 long, skinny ones that are the side yard that go the entire length, and then a front lot and a front yard and a rear yard, all based on the structure to the property lines.
So since this proposed cabana extends beyond the edge of the home, it falls in a side yard?
It would appear to me, based on that reading of the definitions, that it would be in the side yard.
But that's not even the issue. The issue is in the setback. So it could technically be a rear setback, a side setback. I mean.
Oh yeah, this is
we're kind of like splitting hairs on what it is. I think the side only pertains to the fireplace, not the structure. The structure's not in the front. It's only in the rear. So we're giving him permission to build outside the building line is what I interpret this variance.
Well, that's the variance for the cabana.
Correct.
Yes.
But I'm saying the variance for the cabana, it doesn't matter if he wanted to build in the rear or side. He's outside the building line. That's what we're approving or disapproving.
But the fact that it includes a fireplace.
The fireplace is what's going to trigger being on the side of the cabana is what I was getting at earlier.
Okay.
That's what he would have to then get a variance for to put that fire. If we approve the cabana in that position, or that location, he'd then have to get another variance to put the fireplace on the side the way he's showing it. If he chooses to flip and put the fireplace on the rear of the cabana, he wouldn't have to have a variance for that fireplace, is the way I interpret it.
Okay, well, I don't know about the rear of the cabana itself, because it appears that it's 80 or 90%.
It'd be the left side of the cabana if you're looking at it from the pool. Rear of the house.
I mean,
But that would still be in the side yard.
Most of that, the side yard is based on the principal structure.
Mm-hmm.
The principal structure only goes to the first foot or 2 feet of the cabana. So if they put the fireplace on the internal portion of the lot of the cabana.
Yeah.
And I'm ballparking looking at
you're
this.
right, because you'd be splitting hairs at that point on that fireplace. Is now that a setback in the rear, or is that a side yard? Being that the fireplace, because I don't know that you're allowed to have a fireplace on a structure on the side setback.
That's what it's stated earlier.
And so therefore, I think, again, we're getting ahead of the structure itself, but I'm just wondering if that fireplace would trigger another variance.
It would appear to.
Yeah.
And this variance would not be approving a variance to that requirement.
Okay. Only the structure itself, where then Bob could then say, hey, you can't have that fireplace, but you get your structure because it was approved.
If it met all of the requirements except for the fireplace.
So the ordinance reference, Cody, for the fireplace, speaking specifically to the fireplace, is what number, please?
6477. It's 6477. Did you need it drilled down more than that?
64-77?
Yeah.
Okay.
2B2.
Okay. So as not to confuse the applicant, the determination is this variance as submitted would be specific to the accessory structure varying into the side yard as a cabana. If the applicant also desires to have a fireplace, they would be seeking a separate variance to 64-77 2B2. Is that your interpretation as a city attorney?
If
There's
that's
two
what- if
variants,
they wanted
two-part.
to, it would, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm guessing they didn't understand that coming into tonight. So are there any additional questions for staff before we bring the applicant forward? The floor is yours. If you please come forward and state your name and address.
Hello. My name is Ashley Barton. I'm with Georgia Classic Pool, and then I'm here with homeowner, Mr. Tom Cucci, at 1049 Summit View Lane. Also have his wife, Gina, and the owner of Georgia Classic Pool here with us as well. So,
Okay.
Yes, we are here to propose encroachment into that side yard setback into the 25-foot build line on the side for the construction of an open-air cabana. We did have the fireplace and outdoor kitchen in there as well. I was not aware of all of that before coming in here. This project has been, we are constructing a pool. The pool is completed, minus finaling it out with the city, but the construction phase is completed. This has been in the plans from the beginning. We started this process back in October. The drainage pipe that you see on the plat was initially a lot closer to the back of the house. So we had to start by getting a grading permit and moving the pipe. So the actual drainage pipe on the property line did not get moved. It just got moved in their actual property to the back. So we started that process, started the pool, got the pool permit. We had to go through the legality of legalizing the new plat and everything. And then with COVID, it's just been a long process to get to this point. So this was in the plans, but just needing to request the variance has taken us a while to get here.
But just to be clear, it wasn't submitted with the original pool plan?
Correct.
Okay. It was envisioned, but it wasn't submitted for approval.
Right.
Got
We
it.
wanted to get the approval to get this cabana in this location. So, as far as the location, going through the staff report, we did, as far as our options for cabana placement, this was kind of our only option. So that's where our hardship lies, that we can't go in the rear of the pool, being that that drainage easement is there. The other side of the pool, the east side, we didn't feel was appropriate to put a cabana because of the proximity there is. I have some pictures, but there is the grade of the land there. The pool sits at the basement level. There is a large brick retaining wall that then goes up to the main level. You can kind of see it there. There might be a better view at ground level. But to fit a cabana in that space just didn't seem like it looked aesthetically appealing to squeeze this cabana in that area. And then the pitch and the roof of the cabana would then be just in plain view of the main house. Like they overlook the golf course, so then there'd just be a cabana roof out their window. So this is their pool. So that's that east side is on the far side of the pool that the staff had suggested putting it there, and that's where we just disagree as far as being a good placement. And I'm not sure if there's another picture, but we're proposing it on this side.
There's several pictures that would show why it would not work on the east side.
Yeah.
If you can see those two windows, top and bottom floor windows, that structure would be blocking both of those windows. And I took pictures today from both of the windows from the house outside, so that you could see that that wouldn't be a realistic place to put the cabana. And we have pictures of that as well.
So that kind of left us with that one location.
Yeah, that would, if you go back one, please. Yeah, that would be out of the terrace level, the ground floor where the pool is. That is the window facing where the cabana structure would be. That's the base level. And the next picture is the upper level right outside the kitchen. Obviously would be in front of that window as well. And because of where the drainage pipe runs, we really didn't have any other options based on, clearly the house was built before we decided to put the pool in, so there really was no other options. And if you can see that, to put it in that spot, you see the big slope. There's 14 stairs coming from the driveway down. That whole retaining wall would have to have been taken out, and some major construction would have had to take place to put it there. So.
In reference to that picture there, where is, just roughly, does the drainage easement begin? Is it at the edge of the grass? Is
it runs across the whole yard from the left side that's not even in the picture all the way through. So it wasn't just
okay, so it's closer to where your walkway is.
Yeah, in the comment, it said that the easement was, the drainage easement on the west side of the yard was moved. That pipe ran through the whole backyard. We had to move the whole thing back.
The easement line goes right. I mean, we were able to put the pool decking, but the pool's the spa, and then there's the spa and then the line. So we can't go any further back than where the spa line.
Okay, can we get that side view of the pool picture? I think that gives us a better reference for how far. Mm-hmm. Okay, so where that decking is, to the right of it starts the easement?
We're the spa, not the decking. We're the actual edge of the spa.
Okay.
That's the dotted line on the dotted line goes right next to the spa.
Building line.
It goes up to the deck. It would be not the vertical wall of the spa. It's the deck line that you see in the back. The small dotted line is just the 50-foot building line.
The building line
is
where the spa
It's the large dotted
is.
line that you're seeing.
Okay.
They wouldn't be allowed to put the deck over the easement, so that's why it's just abutting it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other points you wanted to highlight?
Do you have anything else to add?
So,
It's been going on for a minute, this.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're wearing white shoes because of all this rain. It must have been a
project.
very muddy winter
Yeah,
for you.
If you could have seen the backyard for a lot of this. We started this process I know we talked about September. It was actually in March when we put money down on the house. We started working with pool contractors, and initially weren't aware that the drainage pipe was even there. And one of the pool builders pointed it out to us and said, you can't build here. And then it has just been a series of approvals and legalities, and I was not to mention how much money we had to spend to move the pipe and reposition things, and then the weather and everything else that has taken place. Clearly, neither one of us knew about the fireplace piece of it.
Right. So, given that consideration, and given what you've heard generally tonight from staff, would you prefer to maybe work a little bit more closely with Bob? I think you've done this in the past on another project, in trying to shift the structure to where you could get less encroachment and perhaps also be able to tuck the fireplace within the rear line of the home. Would you prefer to have another month to work through that detail?
I would rather decide on the fireplace at a different time, I think, and get the structure underway. It's been, like I said, a real long time since we've been trying to get this project.
So you're fine moving forward, understanding you may not end up with a fireplace?
Yes, we'd be fine with that, absolutely. And again, the way the pipe goes outside, we don't have a lot of leeway on how to move it. Maybe within the structure, moving the fireplace, that's the only thing I could see. And yeah, I guess legally it constitutes a side yard. It couldn't be more in the backyard, this thing, than it is. And I think I have pictures of the yard from both sides. So
there's a legal versus a visual. We understand the difference.
I understand that.
But I want to be sensitive to you, the homeowner, and some of these things kind of evolved tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing you're fine moving forward, knowing you may or may not get a fireplace.
That's correct.
Okay. And that's your choice.
Is there a letter or approval from your neighbor?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, they're in the packet.
There's two in here.
There's two, and there's also an approval from.
I'm sorry.
The HOA.
The HOA as well, and they actually came to the house, and they're very discerning on what they let happen and not happen in the neighborhood. So,
I mean, you've already demonstrated a very nice product. I'm sure this cabana, based on the sketches we've seen, are going to continue to be that way. I hate that there was a bit of a monkey wrench this evening for you. So,
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Kirk.
Just to follow up on Jason was saying, so the two neighbors are 1044 and 1053. Is that to your left and right?
if you're looking at the house, the neighbor to the right and the neighbor across the street, we don't have any other neighbors.
Your rear is the golf course.
The rear is the golf course. There are no other neighbors.
Across the street, okay, I'm just looking at this little inset on the plan. You can see it. It doesn't seem to show a house across the street. I'm looking at that little gray box inset in this. So this is your house, right? It doesn't seem to show these, I'm assuming, are houses next to you?
There's no home here. There is one here. There is one here.
Okay. And so what's to the right of your, well, looking at your house, what's to the left of your house? I mean, will there be a site?
There is a site there.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm interpreting then is that the HOA is okay with this, and I think they're probably pretty tough HOA, just my guess. You got the two closest neighbors to you that don't have a problem with this. Okay, just want to make sure I understand.
The one on the right is really the only one, and they've already planted trees on that tree line.
Yeah. What about visibility from the road, since it's going to be to the side? Now, looking from Summit Road itself?
You would be able to see some of it from the side. And that's when the HOA came out to take a look, and they approved that.
Would there be plantings or something to block it from the road?
We can landscape it. We haven't really gone that far yet because we have a little pad out that we plan to build a cabana on, and we haven't finished the landscaping plans related to that until the structure is finished.
Okay, thanks.
But we'll be willing to do whatever we need to do.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant before we move to public comment? Okay, you'll have a chance to speak at the end if you choose.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move to public comment. 10-minute session for those wishing to speak in favor, followed by another 10-minute equal session for anyone in opposition. Is there any public comment from online?
We do not have any public comment from Zoom.
And do we have any here with us tonight? I don't see any. You're welcome to make a closing comment, or we'll move to a motion, which is the floor is yours. Choice is yours. Okay. So without any further comment from the applicant, I'll note that the public comment is closed unless we have any questions for staff.
I've got a question for staff.
Go ahead.
And this probably will play into the applicant needing to know as well. If this variance is denied, what is the period they have to wait, or is there a period they have to wait in order to resubmit a variance request, either for this or for the fireplace?
There is a period, and I honestly don't recall if it's 6 months or 12 months.
I believe it's 1 year.
What's that?
I believe. To come back with a similar request.
Do you need to know if it's 6 months or 12 months for purposes of anything going forward?
No, it's going to be.
It's really
6 to
more for the
12
applicant to
months.
understand.
Yeah.
But we're not here to determine on the fireplace, so
Sure.
that's a separate variance request that you could take at any point if you choose.
I guess I'm kind of confused. Didn't we just approve a bunch of accessory structures in people's front yards?
That's not mixed cases, because I think they're all each to themselves in terms of.
So, but this, the side yard.
But that's not, we're approving it being in the setback.
Right.
Not in the rear set, or not.
The side yard setback.
Not rear or side, yeah. It's just in building in the setback.
Okay. Do you need further clarification on that?
No, I don't.
Paul, do you have any?
I'm sorry.
Any comment regarding the wait period on the denial?
I'm going to have to find online. I'm flipping through the pages. It's going to take me a little. It's actually in a slightly unusual position, as I recall, and I'm not locating it in the code by hand. So I'm going to see if I can do it online.
All right. So I'll make note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
Chairman, if I could just say something too. I did drive by there today as well, and it's very visible. I mean, the fencing is very open. So this structure, I mean, I'm sure it will be beautiful, however it's done. And then the city architect did say that he believes there may be another area. And we did discuss that a little bit. Can you expound on that?
Yes. I mean, they could put the structure legally on the other side of the pool and get it in there. I mean, they might not want it to block some windows or views, but it's an open-air structure. You should be able to see through it. So it's got a roof and it's open. And, I mean, it could be a very nice structure to see, and it would be in conformance with the code is all that's why staff recommended denial, because there's another place for the structure to be positioned that would be in compliance with the code.
And that would include the fireplace.
And it would include the fireplace. And it could be made quite nicely. I mean, you can walk outside your door and kind of this structure is there and, you know.
Okay. So public comment is closed. I'm opening the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve V20-11. I understand what you're saying, Bob, but
Hang on before you get into discussion.
okay. Well, I was just going to go along with my approval. But
Is there any conditions?
the conditions are without a fireplace.
And per the site plan?
And per the site plan dated from Georgia Classic Pools dated. Is there a date on this?
Yeah, in the bottom left, 4/23.
4/23/20.
And without
What about
fireplace?
With the condition of without a fireplace.
conditions of landscaping from the road?
I'll put a condition on with the landscaping approval from the arborist from the road. The landscaping plan.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so I'll restate real quickly. Motion is to approve per the site plan, Georgia Classic Pools. Second condition is without the fireplace. Third is landscape plan to be approved by the city architect for road frontage buffer. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Your
that's
intent?
correct.
State the date on the plan.
The date on the plan is 4/23/20. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say that I think this meets the intent of the ordinance and that it does not cause any detriment, given the fact that there's approval from all the neighbors, the homeowners association, and doesn't seem to be any opposition to it. I don't see any detriment to the community, and I support this.
I would agree, and the reason what I was going to say is I do agree with Bob that they do have a place to put it, but the cost to incur would be more than the thing's worth, in my opinion, to build it in that.
Well, I think I would take that from a different perspective in that Part B of the variance consideration is there are certain unusual and extraordinary circumstances with this property and the buffers, including the drainage easement that exists, that placing a structure of that magnitude with the slopes and the easements, it creates views that I think are obstructed that would be less desirable. So although the literal and strict application may suggest that it could be moved, I don't think in good judgment that would be the right end product that we would want.
Yep, I concur.
So any further discussion? I'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approval with the three conditions for V20-11 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion passed unanimous. Good luck with your project, and please do contact staff to get clarification on the fireplace aspects. Item number 7 on our agenda is consideration of appeals and secondary variances.
We do not have any.
Item 8 is old business. I think the only matter of old business we had was getting everyone up to date on their city emails.
Correct. Yes, I have heard from majority of you. I do know we're working with IT to reset some passwords and all that, so just keep emailing me if you haven't gotten it, and we'll make sure to get that squared away before the next meeting.
Item number 9 is new business. Do we have any?
I have an item I just would want to bring up. The city, I don't know where the council went last night with the new tree ordinance.
Canopy, yes.
Okay, it's pretty extensive, and I know it mentions that...
Before you go, they did not adopt it. They actually deferred.
Okay. Okay, thank you. But regardless of that, it does mention that the BZA would be responsible for variance requests. I'm just wondering, as a point of new business, do we want at some point to maybe get this board a little better briefed on that ordinance, because there's a guidance to it and it's quite a long ordinance. I read through the whole thing, but if we're going to make decisions on this, should we know a little more about it? That would be my new business request.
Can we get a request to the community services director, community development director, for a briefing once this ordinance is adopted?
Yes, I can reach out to the director and the city arborist to schedule a meeting with the board if you would like to kind of go over the new process, and if we do have a variance, to kind of see what the expectations are and kind of educate the board on what to look for, what are the considerations, and kind of get up to code on the terminology that will be used.
And I think the intent would be once it's adopted, then we would get briefed because it could change form.
Right, correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great point, Don. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other new business topics? Item number 10 on our agenda, I think, is for Jake.
It was like you put me on the spot.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's good to see everybody again.
We are adjourned. If you'd please leave your documents here for open records.